Hi guys, welcome to Vesna TV. Today we have another mega video of Dollar Tree DIYs. Look for less piece. I made a lemon wreath. I did this for fairly cheap, but if you look on the Wayfair website, you'll see that theirs is quite really pricey. I made mine for way less. Now you can find other ones. Michael's has them. We don't have Pier 1 anymore, closed down in Canada, but they have them, I saw, on their US website. So, but yeah, so this is what I saw on Wayfair. They were asking $329 for this wreath, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous. So here's what mine looks like. This is what it turned out like, and I think it's pretty similar to the one on Wayfair. They have a few more lemons. Now, theirs might be a little bit bigger than mine, but mine did not cost anywhere near what this one cost. So let me show you how I made mine. So I started off with this this wreath that I had from buying it from a lady on Facebook. She was selling like a package of them. So this wound up being $1 each. And then I went to Dollar Tree and I got a whole bunch of greenery. So I got some magnolia leaves, and just a whole bunch of different little green stems, as well as I believe they're lavender pieces, which I just added a few of them. The one on Wayfair did not have those, but I thought it just gave it that little extra touch, the little purple. So you can see, I just want to show you which different ones I got. And I didn't hot glue anything to the wreath just because I have a really hard time making things look neat with hot glue. And I find, now somebody can give me some tips if they want, I find that sometimes it doesn't stick enough and then things fall off. So because these have little wires at the end, what I did was I snipped the bottom and I pulled back the plastic so that I could get the wire, and then then I just stuck the wire into the straw wreath. Now the lemons are the only thing that I did not get at the Dollar Tree. I wound up getting the lemons at Michael's using my 50% off coupon. The lemons were $11.99 Canadian, so 50% off, that's about $6. And then I used one, because I separated all of these green things, so one stem of these, 3 stems of the magnolia leaves, and then another 2 different kinds of stems of greens, and then the lavender. So once I separated everything, I just kind of pushed things to fill in, as you can see. So wherever there was like the wreath showing, I just filled it in with the different greens. So it probably cost me altogether under $20. I would say about $15, $16 it cost me altogether, which is a lot cheaper than the $329. So once I added the lemons, and adding the lemons, I just kind of spread them out evenly. Once I added the lemons, I went ahead and I added these green pieces, and again trying to fill in the empty spots. And I separated them and I put them in branch by branch. Now this really depends on what you want. Some people might want some of the brown from underneath to show. Some people might not want any of it to show. You could even spray paint it a different color if you absolutely didn't want it to show at all. You spray paint it green. So what I did, I didn't want it to show I didn't care if some of it peeked through a little bit, but I wanted it to be pretty much all covered. So what I did was I separated the branches, but then I also snipped off some pieces where I thought that more needed to be filled in. So as you can see, I've added 3 different kinds of greenery in there, plus the magnolia leaves and the lemons to get my wreath to be completely covered. So this is one of the other greens that I wound up putting in there. And then another pair. And so once I did all of those, once I put all of those in, then I went ahead and I put in the lavender. But again, I took one branch and I just snipped it into pieces, and then I just put them in randomly just so they could be like peeking through. Some of these were really like they had a lot of branches on them, so they were able to go a long way. That's why the wreath did not cost me that much to make. So I'm just going to apologize that the video is a little bit wobbly, but I broke my tripod, so I was filming with my cell phone, and I'm apparently not very good at it. So here's the finished product. I really like the way it turned out. It's very lush. It's very green. Some of the lemons are peeking out. The lemons look like they're the focal, in my opinion, they're the focal point, but they're not. So that's kind of what I wanted. I've seen some lemon wreaths that are just like full of lemons, and I really didn't want that. That's not the look I was going for. So anyway, I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and I'm glad that it did not cost me $329. I recreated this Pinterest two-tiered tray. I also did the little sign. So I'll start off the video by making the sign. So I am using just a leftover piece of cardboard. It was the backing from a picture frame, but the glass broke, so I just kept this to have it. So I'm going to cut it out. I used an X-Acto knife to cut it out, and I wanted it kind of the size of this. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife to cut it even smaller, hoping that it would create a straight line. I don't know why I didn't use a ruler or my cutting machine in the first place, but you'll see I wind up getting it, and it's much easier. So if you have like a paper cutter, use that. It'll make a straight cut, and it'll just be easier. So there it is. I measured out kind of how big I wanted it, and I cut it out that way. And then I also want to do a little frame around this sign, so I'm going to be cutting a few smaller pieces for that. So this sign is the easy peasy lemon squeezy sign that I'm making. I think it looks like a wood sign, and it turned, in my opinion, I mean, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. So I go ahead by cutting out all of the pieces, and I will be painting the sign white, and I will be using Annie Sloan dark wax to wax the frame part, so it gives it a little bit of a wood look. For the white paint, I'm just again using my Vase paint because I had a leftover. I am wanting to cover the entire piece quite nicely, so I will be doing 2 coats of this just once it dries. I don't really want any of the brush strokes showing or any of the brown. So once I finish painting the white and it dries, I hot glue the like the frame parts onto the white part, the brown parts onto the white part, and it looks like this. I went ahead and used my Cricut again to create the Easy Peasy Lemon Squeezy stencil, and I'm going to be using yellow acrylic paint and black acrylic paint, and my little makeup sponges to dab everything on. Again, when you're dabbing, you need to make sure you're not using too much paint, otherwise it will bleed through, and you really don't want that. It won't look very nice. For my next project, I am making these Ray Dunn look mugs. I had these white mugs laying around, so I thought I'd use them. Now, they aren't completely white. The other side of the mug does have stuff on it, but they were mugs I wasn't using, so they work perfectly. Now, I'm freehand writing this "Juice" and "You Are My Sunshine" on the mugs. I don't know how I could have used my Cricut, even if I cut the stencil out. I think with the Sharpie I would have made a mess of it. If you have any tips for me, please leave them in the comments below. Now, if you find that you're not happy with the way something turned out, like this J, I find that I went with the line a little bit too far. Even though I'm using a Sharpie, you can scratch it off if you aren't happy with the way it's looking. So then I just go ahead to assemble the tray. I don't really have like a true method to this. I did add some straws into the cup there, some yellow straws. My method is basically kind of put things in where I think I want them and then fix it up and do some fillers if my risers are showing. So I always put something at the bottom, like underneath my cups. I'll put something underneath the lemons just to make them a little bit higher, and that's really where I play around with it quite a bit, just to get the height and to hide everything and to not have the, like that eucalyptus that I'm using, to not have it take over everything. So here is the finished piece. I love the way it turned out. I love the way the mugs look. I think it's pretty close to the dupe, like to the original. I love the lemons in there. I really love the way the sign turned out. I think it looks like it's a nice wooden sign, even though it's just a piece of cardboard. I added this topiary and a white planter. Really simple. I don't have too much stuff in there. Now I am missing the lemonade and the beads, but I just didn't have those beads to make, and the lemonade I did not make for this project. But again, I think it looks pretty close to the original, and I'll show you the original here again and mine next to it, and you can see that they're pretty close. So if you liked this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, the like button, that helps me out. And if you enjoyed it so much that you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you get notified of more videos. So I just start off with this wooden sign and this wooden round from the Dollar Tree, and I will be painting them out in white using the Rust-Oleum chalk linen white paint. I did one coat of the white, and then I used my Cricut to design the design, and I used Easy November for the lemons. I used lemon font for the lemonade and then Academy font for the 25 cents. I did not wind up using the lemonade. I'll show you in the DIY why later, and the lemon I just found online, like a free SVG, and I cleaned it up. And then I went ahead and we did this, and I used it as a stencil. So make sure you always use transfer paper whenever you're transferring any kind of font for a stencil onto, or even like for anything, any kind of vinyl onto your DIY or your piece that you're doing, because what happens is the vinyl stretches, and then you're gonna have like stretched letters if you don't use the transfer paper. So use the transfer paper, it makes everything easier. So for the lemon, I just used a yellow acrylic paint. I'm leaving the leaves white for now, and for the lemon's font I used just a black acrylic paint. When you are using a stencil anytime and you want to put paint on it, you make sure that you dab. Even if you're using a brush, you dab. It's best to use like even those triangle makeup sponges, or they have the Dollar Tree has the round yellow kind of sponges. that they have for painting, you can use those, or the makeup brushes, you can cut those up into, you know, 2 pieces, and you can use those and reuse them a few times. Just make sure you dab, because if you put too much, and you don't want to put too much paint, because if you put too much paint, it'll bleed everywhere and it'll look awful. So for the leaves, I'm just using a Sharpie. I'm using 2 different colors for the Sharpie, and I'm just tracing around in a darker color, and then I'm going to be filling it in a lighter color, and then I'll just add a few lines of the darker color onto the leaf part just to make it look nice. And you can always, whenever you're doing any kind of intricate stuff, you can always use a Sharpie to kind of help you if you have a color that's similar to what you need. After everything was dry, I drew lines on the piece to make it look a little bit more like it's on a pallet wood or whatnot, kind of like barn board or whatever, just to add to the rusticness of it. And then I added some dark Annie Sloan wax, and I just used one of those shaving brushes that men use for shaving to apply the wax. It's quite rough right now, so it did a really good job applying, like antiquing this piece. So here it is. So then the next DIY, same thing. I'm going to be using this little sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. I thought the shape was really cute, and I'm going to be painting it out in the chocolate and white. So again, I only do 1 coat of the white, and then this is the easiest DIY ever. I found this picture online. I used my Cricut just to clean it up a little bit, and then I'd use the print and cut function just to get it to print, and I just cut it out myself. And then what I did actually is I used a baby wipe, and I wet the edges around. You could spray them too, but I wet the edges around just so I could rip them so it would look kind of like it's ripped. And then when I finish that, I use Mod Podge to apply it onto the wood, and then it kind of gives that look like it was a part of the wood, like it's a wood sign that this was printed on. So I really like this method. I've used it in a summer DIY as well that I did last year, and I love the way it turned out. I'll show you guys I'll link a video up here. So after I apply the Mod Podge to the front and back, I add a little bit of the dark wax just to make it look a little bit more rustic, and that's all there is to it. This is probably the easiest tray DIY that you could do, as long as you have a printer. So this next DIY is another really easy DIY. I have these dishcloths that I bought at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be making a pillow out of them. Now, so when I apply the hot glue, what I'm doing is I kind of put them on the back side facing up, so that way I put the hot glue, like I'm putting the hot glue on the good side, but then I flip it over so you can't see the seams. And I do this all around the pillow. And then I'm just stuffing the pillow with plastic bags. Now you can stuff with plastic bags, with polyfill, with old pillows, with old pillow filling, with old clothing, whatever you really want to. I just have lots and lots of plastic bags, so I'm just stuffing it with the plastic bags. And it's going to look great on my covered back deck. I just forgot to mention, make sure that you don't glue it all the way around. You leave an opening so you can stuff it, and then you glue it after. So you just have to be careful with this part, and you kind of fold it over, and then you add the glue, and then you glue it that way, and it makes a really cute pillow for $2. Well, $2.50 here. Probably if you're in the States, $2. Really, really cheap and like gorgeous pillow. And I mean, to buy these at Winners or HomeSense or Marshalls, you would be paying probably 15 bucks, 10, 15 bucks. Even if you bought a pillow case, you would be at least paying 5 bucks. So really cute, and I love how soft it is and how cute it turned out. Okay, so let's get back to the next DIY. So I guess this is lemon themed only because of the color. But what I'm doing is I have these beads that I had gotten a long time ago, and I am taking 20 of these beads and I'm going to be just putting them in a cup and adding some yellow acrylic paint, and I'm going to be shaking the cup. And this is just another way that I saw to do these beads that might be a little bit easier than to paint them individually, because then all you have to do is touch them up after. I'm okay with the way they turned out, but I almost like spray painting them better. But if you don't, I don't have all sorts of spray paint colors. So having the acrylic paints, I have a more variety of paints. So this is just another alternative. I was going to do them white and yellow, but then I just decided to just do yellow. So I'm just drying them on a skewer here, and then once they fully dry, I'll go over them with a brush and just touch them up, and then that's all there is to them. I'll add them to a rope, to some jute rope, and then, well, just some like twine, sorry, not jute rope, twine, and that's all there is to this little DIY. And last but not least, I have this little container from the thrift store, and I'm going to be painting it, spray painting it in white, and also painting it over with chalk linen white. So I like to always spray paint because with these things it kind of gives a nice base coat, and then I can just put the chalk paint on as something to give it a little bit more depth and texture. So after I do the Rust-Oleum coat on top of the spray painted coat, I was going to use that stencil with the lemonade font, lemonade word that I used at the beginning, like what that I showed you on the Cricut that I wrote in the skinny font, well, the lemon font. Well, I was going to use that stencil, however, it was bleeding because I think because of the ridges and the curve of this vase, it just wasn't working out for me. Maybe I was doing something wrong, not sure. So I improvised and I used a Sharpie just to write in the words. Whenever you write words on something like this, you want to kind of find your center, and then you start with your letter in the middle, and then you kind of work your way out and then out, kind of from the middle and then to the right, and then from the middle to the left, and then that way it kind of looks more centered. And I used a thicker Sharpie and then a thinner Sharpie. I went over it with the thinner Sharpie just to get it to look the way that I wanted to. So just a quick note, anytime you want to distress stuff, you make sure that you take on your paint and then you dab the extra off so that you don't have too much paint. Otherwise it'll either bleed or it won't look the best. And I don't have like a rhyme or reason to the way I distress. I just kind of look at it and put it where I think it needs it. So again, here it is all completed. I think it turned out really cute. So this is the space that I'm going to be working with to create my vignette. So what I'm doing first is I'm just gonna spray it down and wipe it off. Go. So I'm just using this tray. I really like this tray. It's from Dollarama. I use it quite often well, I have two of them, so I use them in all sorts of decor. So this will be a nice one to use here. There. Then I'm going to be using this bottle here. This bottle is a repurposed wine bottle, and this flower in here was actually a pink orchid that I painted, and I can link the video in the cards above, so you can check out how I did that. And then I've got this little S that I've attached to the beads for our last name. And I like positioning things right here because it covers, and I'll show you guys, it covers my electrical outlet, so, because sometimes that's an eyesore. Then I've got this lovely Thai basil that I'm going to be putting on the tray as well, in this really super cute, I think it's super cute, planter that I got at the thrift store. So I decided to go a different way, so I removed that orchid, and I'm just adding these forsythias in here. They are not DIY, they're just from the dollar store. Then I have my little DIY sign that I made. I'm going to put that in here, just over on the side. And then I've got some lemons that I'm going to add into the tray. So here is the completed tray. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. You know, as simple as these trays are, they always wind up taking me such a long time because I always change my mind, then I don't like it. I actually tried a whole bunch of stuff. I just didn't want to bore you with the details on here, but I tried putting like a little, it's like a mini cake stand to put something on it. Then I tried my big Market Fresh sign, tried a whole bunch of stuff. I really wanted, yeah, anyway. It is what it is. So, but I really like the way this tray turned out. I love the lemons. I have the lemon theme going on through my house. So, enjoy it. And when I get the coffee bar set up, so if I, you know, not that we have company right now, but if we were to have company, I could easily remove this tray and just set up the coffee bar there. But just for me, I won't have a coffee bar set up. So if you guys liked what you see and you'd like to see more, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and the notification bell so you can see more of my videos. What's unique about today's video is that I am using all essential only items. As you know, I am in Ontario, Canada, where we are in yet another lockdown and we cannot buy any craft supplies. So this is a part of a collab where we had to create only using our essential items. So I'm starting with none other than these plungers. So I will be using 8 plungers to make my first project, and I start by removing the bottom part of the plunger and just keeping the stick from it. So I mix some Rust-Oleum chalked linen white, some black, and some brown paint. Now I'm using the chalked charcoal and the chalk paint from Art Minds from Michael's, and it's the espresso, but you could use any kind of combination of brown, black, and white paint if you wanted this color. I just really liked this kind of muted brown color, kind of like a darkish, it kind of, to me, it looks like an aged brown. So I'm just mixing it up, and I added a touch of water to get it to be more like a stain rather than a paint. And so I just go ahead by rubbing I brush the paint on and then I rub it off with a baby wipe. If you've watched me before, you know I love to use this in all of my DIYs. I love the look of wiping it off with the baby wipe. So I go ahead and I do this with all of them. So once they are all stained, I then just go and match them up to see how they'll fit. Now here's where I kind of made a mistake, but not really. So I tried to take a shortcut. I didn't want to cut the tops off to make it flat because the top of the plunger is a little bit curved. And it was nighttime when I was doing this. The kids were sleeping, so I didn't want to use the electric saw, but then I didn't I didn't feel like using the handsaw, I'll be honest. I just thought, I'll make it work. I wound up having to go back and cut some of them and re-glue them because they didn't want to glue properly. So save yourself an extra step and just do it right the first time. So as you can see, I did use a combination of wood glue and hot glue. So make sure you use both. It'll give you that firmer hold sooner. And I did let everything kind of dry 24 hours so that it really stuck together. Except for one of them, which I had to fix up after. So that one did not have the 24 hours, but I put lots of hot glue so that it would have that hold. But you'll see I do something else to this that makes it the hold even stronger. After I glue those, I set them to the side, and then I go ahead and I use these rulers that I also purchased at the Dollar Tree because a part of the essentials is kind of home cleaning supplies and some of the school supplies as well. So rulers were one of them. So I got these rulers. I was going to take the stickers off, but then I just decided to leave them on and just paint over top of it, and it did work. It worked out well. So I'm painting it or staining it, but these ones I'm just going to be painting in the same paint that I painted the ladder, the wood part, but these I'm not wiping off, so they're going to be a little bit darker. So after I put them together and had them glued, I had to have them on the floor because they were so long that I didn't have a place to have them that was long enough. Now I'm using jute rope to wrap around the joints. Now you don't, so jute rope I had on hand. However, they had this rope in the car section at Dollar Tree. They had a black one, but it was all frayed, so I didn't get it, but that was the only one that they had. Originally, I wanted to use the black rope because then it would be like everything that I got there instead of using some things at home. But unfortunately, they didn't have it, but you could use any kind of rope. Like I said, I wound up using the jute rope, and I think you can still buy the jute rope. I didn't pay attention because I have a whole bunch. So, but like I said, you could use the rope that's in the car section as well, and it would work just fine. So the reason this one actually broke is because I kicked it. Like I stepped on it and tripped over it, and it wound up hitting another piece of wall, and then it broke. But all of them were fairly sturdy. So what I do with the jute rope is I just wrap it around the joints, and I do a little bit on one side and a little bit on the other and the middle, so that way it has a better hold. And I hot glue every once in a while, not the whole way around, but pretty much like every little bit. So that way everything sticks together a little bit better. And I do quite a tight hold. And it, like I said, it'll just give that extra layer of strength to the ladder. You still can't climb it though. So I'm only showing you this, the first one that I did, because I did this 6 times, so that's quite a bit. And I mean, the video would be extremely long if I tried to show you the whole, all of them. So I just show you the one, and then you'll see the finished product soon. So once I have all of them finished, I attached the rulers to them, and that completes the ladder. I don't measure where they go. I just kind of go eyeball it to be in the middle, and I'm happy with the way that looked. You can definitely measure if you wanted to. I did not. And I just use hot glue to glue these down. So here's the finished piece. So as I said, some things are deemed essential, which is kind of funny because you're thinking, well, why would it be deemed essential? So this is, I thought this was a little vase, but I think it's actually a candle holder, and candles have to be essential if we don't have power for whatever reason, so we can have some light. So the candles and candle holders are essential. So I bought this little vase or candle holder and these stickers. So these are like the pearl dot stickers. I don't know why they're deemed essential. They were in the school section. I don't know if they were put there by accident and the cashier sold them to me and shouldn't have sold them to me, but there was lots of them there. So I'm assuming for whatever reason they were deemed as a school supply. Probably like whatever that barcode is that they have, they deemed it as a school item. So I could buy them. So I bought them. So I'm going to be giving some texture to this candle holder. And I'm just going to wrap these around as straight as I can make them to go all the way around the vase. And then I'll be painting it in the chalk linen white paint, inside and out. So when I got the idea to make this, I actually thought that I would just glue, like just do dots of hot glue all around. And to be honest with you, I think it might have been easier. These were a little bit finicky to put around and to make sure that they were going straight because the vase or candle holder was curved. So it was a little bit more difficult. So just keep that in mind if you're going to recreate this. And here it is completed. I even love that it's a little bit kind of wobbly. It just gives that a little bit more of a rustic edge to it. I might go back and distress it even a little bit more and have it be even more rustic looking, but for now I really like the way it looks. It's a cute little addition to a tray. For this next DIY, it's again another easy one. If you watched my video on Sunday, you saw I made a pillowcase from Dollar Tree items. So I went ahead and I did another pillowcase. This time I used the car washing rag from the Dollar Tree as well as a dishcloth, and I'm using my sewing machine to sew these. There was a lot of yelling and screaming at the sewing machine because for the life of me, something's not right with it. The thread keeps on breaking, ripping. So if you have any pointers, I'm thinking the thread is just cheap thread and I need to get better thread. But all of my threads are doing that, but mind you, they're all really cheap threads. So I'm not sure what it is. Like I said, if you have any pointers, you let me know. But I sewed this all the way around. I measured kind of how I wanted my pillow to be, and then I am folding it in so that way I don't have to have a button or anything. So I'll show you what I mean once it's sewn. So when you go to sew it, you want to put both of them kind of good side in, and then you want to fold over the piece that you want to show as your, like when you fold your pillow in. So the piece that you want to show, you have to fold it in. See, like I'm showing you here. And then you sew it all together. So that way when you flip it over, that will go over top of the white piece and it'll give you that overlap. Hopefully that makes sense. And when you want to see how much you need to overlap, what you want to do is you put your pillow on top just to get a measurement of how big the pillowcase needs to be, and then that's where you kind of fold in for the sewing part. And that's all there is to this one. If you want to see a tutorial of how to make a pillow without sewing and just using hot glue, I'll stick it up here. It's from my video from Sunday. So So here it is all completed. I made 2 of them, and this is the back. This is what I was talking about, that fold over. And I think they're gorgeous. They're so cute. And my son likes to call them sweetie pillows because they're really soft. It's very cute. So anyway, they'll be great for my outdoor porch. I have a covered porch. I have 2 of them. Like I have a covered deck, and then underneath it's covered as well. So I have a bench there that I can put them on. Okay, on to the last DIY. So this last DIY is, in my opinion, it's a lighthouse, but I asked several people and everyone told me different things. So, be it what it may, I like the way it turned out. It's a cute little decoration. I'll probably have it outside, like under my deck, as a part of the decor there. We've got a pool, so it'll kind of go in with that theme. But what I'm doing is using these terracotta planters to make the part of the lighthouse, and then I'll be using a solar lamp from the Dollar Tree. So like I said, the garden stuff was also um, essential. So these terracotta plants were essential and the solar lights are essential. So I am gluing all of this together using just hot glue, and then I'm also, before I glue them, I'm going to be painting them in the chalk linen white. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going to do a light coat, and then you got it. I'm using that baby wipe and I'm going to wipe it off so it kind of looks like it's aged. What I wanted it to look like, I found a few lighthouses that were really aged and kind of rusty, like a rusty white, and that's kind of what I wanted with this one. So that's what I'm trying to achieve by wiping it off. So to glue them on, I'm just using a combination of tacky glue and hot glue just to get a little bit of a firmer hold. You can do whatever you'd like. I also did go over top of the white paint with some of that brown paint that I used for the ladder, just to give it a more dirty kind of look. And then for the top part, well, I had all those bottom parts of the plunger left, so I wanted to use that for the top part of my lighthouse. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm painting it in the white, wiping it off, and then using a little bit of the brown. And then I'll be cutting a hole into the middle of it, so that way I can stick the solar light in, and then I hot glue everything to the top terracotta plant. Er, and that's all there is to it, and here is the finished piece.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. See you next time.